Welcome to Planet Earth, football, history, dinosaurs. It's your reward for a good, hard work week. And if you didn't do such a great job, but you're still there, hey, at least you did a good job of hiding it, right? Like my Uncle Nick used to say, hey, boy, cheat off somebody smarter than you are. Gotta admit, a little bit of logic back there. Very educated now that you think about it. Hey, let's talk about some history, man. Let's talk about those unsung heroes like you doing all that work and you don't get the credit, but don't worry, it's coming to you sooner or later, right? But the guy I'm talking about, that's George Gordon Meade from Philadelphia. He was actually born in Cadiz, Spain. His father was a diplomat, but they were from Philly, so he claims Philly as his, but he was an Eagles fan. He just has that look about him. But he's an unsung hero. This is the guy, the first general ever to beat Robert E. Lee in a head to head battle. I said that a few episodes back. We're talking about the man today, not just what he did. So he's an unsung hero, George Gordon Meade. Who would have ever thought this is the guy who's going to actually end up saving the Union? That's right, he saved the Union at Gettysburg. Again, he should get the credit he deserves. Yeah, Grant and Sherman did a good job. I'm not taking anything away from him, but this guy deserves some kind of credit. Part of the problem is, well, he doesn't look very heroic. Looks kind of like a snapping turtle. That was his nickname, Old Snapping Turtle. Bad temper, and kind of guy who didn't like being out in out in the attention very much, on attention hound. So he would have been terrible on social media if they had it back in 1863. Now, our friend George went to West Point. Big surprise. Class of 1835. Um, he went there in 1831, did the 4 years thing. He was not a fan of military dress and drill. Yeah, I don't blame him. It's kind of boring. I'm more into the weapons. Well, he racked up so many demerits. He was 32 short of mandatory dismissal. Yeah. I don't think he cared, man. He liked playing with swords and weapons a lot more, which is what you should probably emphasize on. But the dress parades and everything. You got to do something in between wars. I guess it's really good for budgets. All that kind of stuff too. Yeah, the military uses propaganda to make money too. Everybody does it. You, me, them. Well, here he is in full dress uniform, very reluctant. You take one look at him. He's like, yeah, this is what I'm supposed to wear. I'm wearing it I'm supposed to. Here I am. Take the picture, drawing, and leave me alone. Right? Got work to do. So George Gordon Meade made it all the way to general. He's an engineer in the beginning. A lot of people in this era came out to be engineers because America's westward expansion needed roads and canals. Later on, the railroads are coming up. It's already started. Our friend George, he built the lighthouses and docks up and down the East Coast, everything from Maine down to Florida. He was also in the Seminole War a couple times. He came under fire a couple times down there in Florida. He served in the Mexican War. We don't find a lot of records of him because, like I say, he doesn't draw a lot of attention to himself. He just kind of goes out and does it, gets it done, and moves on to something else. I think he would have been a great computer programmer, to be honest with you. Just gets it done, moves on to the next thing. But there he is. He made it all the way to general, full dress uniform. Doesn't particularly like it. He's more of this thing, right? He just wears what you need to wear. Just tell me what you need to do, and I'll go out and do it, right? Need a lighthouse built? Gotcha. Canal built? Gotcha. Save the Union? I'm on it. I'm your guy. Now, during the Civil War, George was a general, of course, and he'd already played quite a prominent role in quite a few battles. He's a very calm, level-headed guy who was able to see Confederate intentions like before they did it. And like I said, if he'd been more of an attention hound, he might have actually been commander of the Army of the Potomac a little bit earlier. But he was at Bull Run, the first one. He was at the second Battle of Bull Run, where he held the Henry Hill House so that John Pope could retreat. If he didn't do that, the whole army gets destroyed. He knew all about the place, that he'd been there one time before. He was also at Fredericksburg when Burnside screwed up over there again. His battalion is holding everybody, division rather, is holding everything in place so everybody can retreat and get back across the river. He's also at the Battle of South Mountain, where he got a good look at Robert E. Lee up close. He fought very well there. And didn't exactly beat Robert E. Lee, but he fought him to a draw, and I think he learned a lot, too. That would come in handy a few weeks later there at Gettysburg. Well, the Civil War came. We already know that. You saw everything he did. He was a staunch Unionist. He felt that the Confederacy had no business trying to leave the Union. The prevailing opinion in the North at the time was goodbye and good riddance. If they want to go, let them go. Then they fired on Fort Sumter, and I never understood that. Why would you fire on a fort belonging to a country twice your size and start a war against somebody you probably can't win against? But they fought pretty hard. I'll give them that. But in the end of the day, hey, the Union's going to win, right? A lot more weaponry, a lot more industry. We had a little bit of a problem with generals in the beginning. You ever hear that saying? I'd rather have an army of sheep led by a lion rather than an army of lions led by a sheep. That was the Union problem in the beginning, right? We had McDowell, who went to Bull Run and lost, and then here comes McClellan's good at training people, not very good at fighting. Then John Pope, who just walked right into, Chancellorsville over there. McClellan back. He had a chance to crush Lee at Antietam. It didn't quite pan out that way. Burnside, who begged not to be given command, they gave it to him. We saw that kind of all screwed up again. So, just bad generals after bad generals here. And finally, when John Hooker showed up to become the latest commander of the Army of the Potomac, and then he eventually got fired right when Lee had invaded Maryland. And they weren't sure. They tried to give command of the Army to 3 other people. They wouldn't take it, and guess who's number 4 on the list? Yep, George Gordon Meade. Had no problem arguing with people, but he always kept it professional. So they showed up at 2 o'clock in the morning and let him know his new Army of the Potomac. He thought he was about to get court-martialed. When they came up, they said, hey, we have a new Army of the Potomac commander. He said, who's the lucky SOB? Well, funny, you are. Anyway, he thought he was going to get court-martialed. He gets this, and then he said, I'm not sure if I'm going to go to command an army or am I going to my execution. So, given the record everybody had against Lee, the odds weren't looking too good. And 2 years into this war, you're not grinding him down in like Birmingham someplace. This battle's happening in Pennsylvania. So we definitely need somebody who knows what he's doing, and this is the guy we got. So old Snapping Turtle, he's trying to get to Gettysburg. The first day of the battle, we've got Doubleday and Reynolds and everybody there. The senior commanders on the spot. Reynolds was a guy they offered to command to at first. He said, no, thank you. But it turns out he was in command on the first day as Meade was trying to get there, and Reynolds got shot right in the head. So then, Meade shows up, sees the positions his subordinates have selected, and says, looks like good ground, which is a phrase they use a lot, good ground. And it was good ground. See, part of Meade's genius was, 1, he knew a good defensive position when he saw it, especially at ridge line. And 2, he's smart enough to listen to his subordinates. Because sometimes you get these generals who don't want to listen to anybody, think they've got everything under control, and they don't. Especially when you weren't there when it started. And sometimes ego gets involved in everything. If there's one thing Meade didn't really have very much of, by Civil War standards, was an ego. He was smart enough to listen to his subordinates, and they had to all set and ready to go, and he decides, okay, we're going to stick with this position. And as I said in the other video, instead of Meade going on the attack against Lee and losing like everyone else has done, this time Meade stays on defense and lets Lee come to him and lets the Confederates bash themselves silly. So we know how this is going to end. It's going to end with a Union victory, and this is the end of any kind of Confederate offensive capability. From this point on, the entire war is going to be waged down south. The only chance the Confederacy has is the election in 1864 goes their way and Lincoln loses, or if they just get tired of smashing themselves in the Confederate defenses. So Meade basically outlead Lee at Gettysburg. This is one of Meade's best friends here, Old Baldy. Yeah, it's his favorite horse. And Old Baldy was wounded 14 times. Can you believe that? I mean, every battle this guy went to, something happened. Meade got wounded a few times too. He's wounded in Virginia a couple times, caught one in the shoulder, another one in the back. Got hit with shrapnel one time there at Fredericksburg, came out of Gettysburg, okay. Old Baldy, he caught shell fragments in the ribs, had a bullet hit him in the hindquarter. other shell fragments and rocks getting hurled by artillery, bashing off the side of his head there, you know. And somehow old Baldy keeps it going. He first met Meade at a government auction, and Meade bought him for $150. And it just started kind of a lifelong friendship there. And eventually, old Baldy got old and got a little gun shy. He got wounded on the 14th time, and he just wouldn't advance despite, Meade yelling at him. So he figured it was time for old Baldy to retire. And he found a nice farm for old Baldy to run around in. He told him, "You take care of my horse, give him whatever he needs, let him run around." And old Baldy apparently was very vigorous. We're just going to leave it at that. And had a lot of fun with the other horses and was galloping around and seemed more active in his old age than he did when he was younger. I guess when you don't get shot at all the time, this kind of helps out. And old Baldy actually survived Meade by about 10 years. Yeah. Meade would die in 1872, and old Baldy was the horse there for the riderless horse ceremony. That's right. They put the boots in backwards, no rider. Old Baldy participating there in the funeral activities. So I guess he saw his friend off. Then it got kind of disturbing because, old Baldy eventually died, right? And instead of just burying him somewhere, you know what these crazy people did? This is going to be very disturbing. You might want to avert your eyes here. They cut off his head, put it in a glass case, and put it in a Grand Army Republic Museum in Philadelphia. I don't know about you, man. I just find that to be extremely disturbing, man. I mean, I don't know what to think of that. That, to me, it just bothers me, man. I don't know. That just seems to really be odd, disturbing, and kind of freakish. But there it is. They're not listening to me, so at least we won the war, right? Let it go at that. Taking one for the team. Thanks, old Baldy. All righty. Let's talk about the Sabre Tooth Cat. No, it is not a saber-toothed tiger. It is saber-toothed cat. C-A-T, cat. Just like my friend Buddy over here, who's unusually quiet today. You okay there, pal? Hey, he looks okay. He's doing fine. Sleeps like a cat, hangs around like a cat, has kittens like a cat. See the kitten there at the feet of the saber-toothed cat over there? Has probably the same manners. Probably slept all day. Licks itself and runs around and occasionally eats something. And probably a horrific predator, just like the house cat. Not our cats. Our cats, they don't chase anything. The only thing they chase is the sound of the snack bag opening up. But the saber-toothed cat is not a tiger. Now, the saber-toothed cat came from Asia, its ancestors. Most cats' ancestors came from there. And how to get over to North America? The Bering Land Bridge. I want to clear something up here about the Bering Land Bridge, right? Everyone acts like it's a bridge, right? Like a bridge, like, how many bridges here in Pittsburgh, all over the place, right? People just drive over it. And a lot of times I've seen some of the paleontology shows where they show something running over the land bridge and it's like this narrow strip of land going into the distance. No, it's not, man. All right, the Bering Land Bridge is erroneously named. It's where North America and Asia connected, making one big continent for a while. And we call this Beringia, right? Bering Strait, Beringia. A lot of people, they lived and died there for thousands of years. It's a piece of land like anyone else. And when the ice sheets in North America covered most of the continent, blocked off Asia. So they're connected, but still blocked off by the ice. So it's like a traffic jam. But people and animals lived there for thousands and millions of years. It's not something transitory you just drive over. It's a piece of land like everything else. And when the ice sheets melted and the land rose, and you have the current coastline, look how much land got covered up. How many fossils and things to be discovered are in there, do you think, man? Oh, so under all this thousands of feet of water, so we'll never know. But when the ancestors of the saber-toothed tiger and a lot of other things were coming over from Asia, they got to what's present-day Alaska, and of course they couldn't get over the ice sheet. And here are the ice sheets. Eventually we have a corridor that opens up. To the east, it's the Cordilleran ice sheet, the Laurentide ice sheet, and to the west, it's the Cordilleran ice sheet. And there's a corridor that opens up, and we know this because we found fossils sort of in a line over there. Now, some people are, these lines you see are also human habitat, how humans got to North America, coming down through that same corridor. Some people say it came by boat. I think both sides are right. Some people arrived in a small boat and some people walked, but it wasn't like it was the Mayflower, you know. so so anyway, once the ice sheets begin to open up and animals start coming through, the ancestor of the saber tooth, kind of wildcat looking things, come to North America and they become the saber tooth cat that we all know and love. And the saber tooth cat also finds its way down into South America. Now back to the saber tooth cat. That is a robust and very large animal. We're talking 10 feet from its nose to its tail over there. There's several different species. We're talking about the big one called Smilodon. Uh, Sometimes it's got these heavy bones, but because it's a cat, you know, it's got to be able to move pretty fast. So a lot of people, there's a lot of debate about how much this thing would have weighed. Everything from 400 to 1,000 pounds. I think 1,000 pounds is kind of heavy. Maybe 800, maybe, depending. So we're talking about an animal that could easily run and jump, outrun and outjump basically anything. We know it had a very active lifestyle according to the bones and remains we found. So it's very big and it's very fast. It would be a really good linebacker, and too bad the Steelers can't sign him. Now, how far could it open his mouth? Of course, you're going to notice those sabers, right? The teeth, first thing you see. Now, we do know when it's closed, it's going to fit snugly into the upper jaw, right? Someplace for it to go. Now, most animals, especially a lion, it can open his jaw about 60 degrees. All right, that's very plausible. Problem is, though, is that lower jaw barely clears that massive front teeth. So it's obviously got to open wider. So some people have hypothesized it opens to 120 degrees. There's some debate over that, maybe 80, I don't know, but it seems like you have some serious jaw muscles on this thing in order for that to happen. And maybe it can open the mouth that wide, but if it's that wide and jumping on something, it's risking breaking its jaw. You know, you don't want that to happen. If it breaks a saber tooth, it could live without it if it has to. In fact, you know, there aren't any saber tooth cats around today, and everything's descended from it, so obviously it doesn't need that. So I'm wondering if it can really open his jaw that wide, and so a lot of people wonder what the teeth are exactly for, those big sabers. Well, when it made the kill, it didn't actually use those teeth to make the actual kill. It would bite and go through the jugular, for the jugular vein, right? So that way the animal is attacking, is bleeding out, and then it smashes it to the ground with those paws, and basically just beats it to death. So, you know, the saber teeth certainly help, but the strength of this animal, it doesn't really need those teeth. If it happens to break a tooth, and, you know, it's going to be okay, though it's, you know, a little bit off balance there. And look at that, it's got to fight it out with the wolves. So we know these battles happened a lot. It kills something and all the scavengers show up. Usually wolves, you got the vultures up there, but the vultures tend to stay away till you're done. It's the wolves you got to worry about because they tend to attack in packs. We don't know if saber-tooth is a solitary hunter or even a social animal, but if it is definitely solitary, it's got a little bit of a problem with a bunch of wolves around it. A saber-tooth can take down a wolf, no problem. Can it take down 3? I don't know. Can 3 wolves take down a saber-tooth? Probably not, but does a saber-tooth really want to hang around? The thing just stays out of range the whole time, biting at you, just going to come back when they're done. Cats are not very patient. Now, if the saber-tooth is a social animal, like lions and leopards and stuff today, then I guess they don't really have to worry too much about the wolves and everything. The wolves, like modern-day hyenas, will just keep their distance, and they'll just watch until the saber-tooth is done, or gets bored, or wanders off to go to sleep, which won't take very long because it's a cat. So it's just a waiting game. If you're a wolf, just follow the saber-tooth tiger around, saber-tooth cat, and sooner or later they'll just get tired of it and leave, and you can get whatever's left over. Hey, it beats working, right? We know that the saber-tooth cat had a active lifestyle. Like we said, we know it's big, we know it's muscular, we know it could really move. And the reason we know this is because, it seems to show signs of arthritis. Yeah, right there in the joints. We know that the saber-tooth was an ambush predator. It would jump. It pounced on things, just like your house cat. It pounces, except it's much bigger. And the bracing down on the knees and jumping. Yeah, after a few years of this, approximately 15, it's going to start to lead to arthritis sometimes. And strangely enough, not only was the saber tooth prone to this, so was his annoying wolf competitors. Yeah, they showed signs of arthritis too, because saber tooth's an ambush predator, whereas the wolf is run things down most of the time. So a lot of running puts a lot of stress on those knees. Saber tooth gets the same problem from pouncing all the time. Now, how do we know this? Well, for once, the city of Los Angeles comes in handy. Over at La Brea tar pits, we have mastodons. Occasional mammoth get stuck in a tar pit, can't go anywhere, and it tends to attract a lot of predators. Why? Because there's an animal struggling. So the predator jumps on it, try to eat it, and they get stuck in a tar pit. They get sucked in too. So that's how we know a lot about both saber tooth and wolves, because it attracts a large number of predators, and you have a lot of fossil remains to take a look at, and you can do a lot of studies. I wonder if how many vultures got caught in there. Not too many. I guess they could fly. So, but a few got caught in there because we have the remains, right? We have the fossils of these things. I've never been to Los Angeles. I really don't have any desire to go to LA. But if I ever do, yeah, I'm going to go visit the La Brea tar pits and maybe the LA Coliseum. Now, what happened to the saber-toothed tiger? What always happens to megafauna? What happens to everything? Right? Homo sapiens shows up. Yeah, some people say it's the end of the ice age. The climate was changing. The larger animals died out, and so saber-toothed tiger had nothing to eat, so it either died out or downsized into an American lion or mountain lion or something. Yeah, those are all plausible. All right, I'm not saying it didn't happen, but I do notice humans show up at the same time everything vanishes. Yeah, it happens over and over, not just in the ice age. Everywhere you go, the humans show up and everything disappears on you, man. It's I don't know. Human beings are like, we are the most destructive and the most creative species the world has ever seen. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. This would be such an awesome planet if it wasn't for the humans. Now we'll see how it goes, right? Now, speaking of how it goes, man, how about that Steeler game? Whoa, was I way off? Everybody was off. We got crushed 30-7. Now, we've had worse opening days. 1989, the Steelers got destroyed at home 51-0 by the Browns. Last time Browns were any good. They lost to Dallas 37-7 back in 97 and had a good year after that. It's like they forgot the preseason was over. So I'm not ready, to blow taps quite yet on the season. 17-game season, 16 more to go. Didn't think we were going to win all of them. And right there, pictured, is the guy who's the MVP of that game, who unfortunately is not a Steeler, he's a 49er. That's McCaffrey over there, Christian McCaffrey. That guy had a spectacular game, 157 yards on the ground. If you want to win any games, you cannot let the opposing running back run for 157 yards. But I'm pretty sure Coach Tomlin knows that. If he doesn't, just smile, nod, pretend you knew the whole time. I didn't know this guy was shooting his mouth off there. Patrick Pearson playing for the Steelers there as a corner. Talking about beating the 49ers, I was looking forward to picking off Brock Purdy. Yeah, well, if you do stupid stuff like that, they're going to target you, and they're coming after you, and they did, and they burned him for 2 touchdowns. That's a nice picture over there, right? There's some other ones that looked even worse. I decided to take the high road here. So, rule against the Browns, game 2. Do not open your mouth. Don't talk to the press. Shut up. You got a lot of work to do, right? So don't sit around talking to anybody. If after you win the Super Bowl, you can shoot your mouth off for a week or so. But until you get there, please shut up and concentrate on your job. That brings us to week 2. The Cleveland Browns are coming to Pittsburgh Monday night at Acrisure Stadium. So this is going to be this is the first time this rivalry has actually been relevant in a long time. The Brownies came off a very impressive win over Cincinnati. The Steelers just got wiped out in front of a home crowd. So the Browns are looking for their first 2-0 start since, good Lord, man, 93, I think, something like that. It hadn't even been a century, right? And the Steelers trying to avoid going 0-2. They've been 0-2 before and rallied back, but it's a little bit easier when you win in the beginning. Just a little bit of advice here from Mr. H. And how are we going to do that? Well, first you got to know who you're playing. Cleveland's offense was sort of okay. I mean, they got the win, obviously, right? They're playing at home. It was raining. Some people say, oh, the weather conditions affected their offense. Come on, man. It's in Cleveland. You're from Cleveland. That's not an excuse, right? Their quarterback, Deshaun Watson, usually pretty good, but he didn't have that great a game. The reason that Cleveland's able to move because number 24 there, Nick Chubb. You got that running game going. It got over 100 yards and started smashing Cincinnati backwards. When your running game is working, you don't have to worry about throwing the ball too much. Everyone's a balanced offense, right? 20 plays running, 20 plays rushing. If you end up like 30 running and 15 passing, you're probably winning the game. You're going to win that game. So Cleveland's offense is a little bit suspect. But their defense, wow, their defense looked really good. That's something I'm not used to saying about the Browns. The words Browns and good usually don't fit in the same sentence. 95 there is Myles Garrett. He had a really good game. It's a guy up on the line you got to keep an eye on. And there's the entire defense doing something the Steelers defense didn't do a lot of. Collapse in on the pocket. Crush the quarterback. If you get to the quarterback, you can't throw. If you can't throw, he's got to run and you're waiting for him. You make him one-dimensional, they can't do anything. I mean, you should know. Steelers is what happened to you, right? This is J.J. Watt, the only guy who showed up to play defense last week. There he is, the one guy who managed to hit Brock Purdy and knock the ball loose. Do you know he got 3 sacks? Yeah, as bad as the Steelers were last week, T.J. Watt had a great game. I mean, really, if they'd won, he would have been the MVP. But, how do you have a great game and 3 sacks and lose 30-7? I don't know, man. I've been watching this game forever and still finds ways to, I'm just mystified sometimes. Here's another thing, Pittsburgh. Less of playing around in the back end zones doing selfie and a little bit more of TJ Watt type style hitting the quarterback. Do you know how hard it was to find a picture on the left that extols the virtues of the Steelers defense? It wasn't easy. It was that bad a game. And here they are playing around in the back of the end zone like you've done something. You haven't done anything yet. Win a Super Bowl. Then you can play around back there. But until then, please put the phones away. Please stop being narcissistic, attention-seeking goofballs and get on with your job, man. Everyone's paying tickets to come see you win. Win the game, especially those you can win, i.e. Cleveland. Again, protect the quarterback. How many times you hear me shout this out? I didn't keep stats, but it seemed like Kenny Pickett was getting attacked by a guy in a white jersey about half the time he dropped back. Somebody who wasn't supposed to be there was in the backfield with him. Then I looked up the stats. He had 45% of the time the pocket collapsed. There's the lineman who's looking back at you. Shouldn't be doing that. If you protect your quarterback, you're going to win the game. And why should you protect your quarterback? Well, I don't want him getting crushed. I want to be able to throw the ball. That would be a really good thing, don't you think? I mean, I hope you know this already, Pittsburgh. Got to use your running game to take control. The same thing the 49ers did to you, you got to do to Cincinnati. To Cleveland. And eventually Cincinnati. You're going to play them anyway. And there's Najee Harris over here, who carried the ball 6 times for 31 yards. He's got 5 yards of pop. You didn't use him. And you couldn't because they fell behind 17-0 and had to keep throwing the ball. See what I mean? Becoming one-dimensional. If you're one-dimensional, they're going to beat you. If you can't run the ball, they know you're throwing, they're waiting for you. You notice Najee Harris has a way of jumping over people? Yeah, that's the second picture I've had with him jumping. Even that 49er back there is smiling, too. He thinks it's a really cool picture, too. He knows he's in the picture, so that's why he's smiling. And then that insult, the injury. The injury bug attacks early. Cam Hayward's going to be out for some months with a hamstring pull, so he's having surgery, so we won't see him for the game. And then over here is Dante Johnson. He has a hamstring injury. He's going to be out for a few weeks. I don't know what's up with the hamstrings. And I'm really not sure how Dante Johnson got hurt because, you didn't really catch the ball that many times. I don't know, man. Like I said, this whole game just kind of mystified me. But that's okay. We got more coming up. So here's the guy who might replace Deontay Johnson, last I heard. Gunnar Olszewski. Who is this guy? I'd be honest with you. I don't know. They signed him off the practice squad. But I always liked those edge players because I used to be an edge player too, playing with Hamilton up in the Canadian Football League. So I know what it's like. And it's always great when you got an unknown guy who comes off the bench and really does something awesome. And I hope he does something awesome. The big advantage he's got going for him is that nobody knows who he is. So you don't know his strengths and weaknesses. But the Browns, as dumb as they are professionals, so they're going to be watching and they're going to figure out real fast. So strike hard, strike fast, strike early. Put them in a hole. Now remember, it's Monday Night Football. That's what you're supposed to remember Acrisure Stadium for. Look how lit up it is. It's going to be an electric atmosphere, especially playing against the Browns. Win the game and make sure that they remember that Acrisure Stadium is the site for Monday Night Football and the home of the Steelers, not the Taylor Swift concert that was there a couple months ago that people are still talking about. I don't want to hear about that. I want to hear about Steeler victory, right? So let's go out there and knock off the Brownies and, do what you got to do. Might have to water the field down a little bit, make it hard for them to move. They don't seem to like wet fields very much. Maybe turn off the hot water in the showers. Hey, it's home field advantage. Do what you got to do. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Have yourself a fantastic weekend. Point out my many mistakes down in the comments if you like. And I'll see you again next week. Das vidanya.